Well, welcome everyone to another exciting class, an educational class. Today, it's being brought to you by Tony Marino, the branch manager at Guild Mortgage in Naperville, Illinois. And we thought it was appropriate. Tony and I were talking about how the single family market is a little soft, that interest rates, despite the fact that they're coming down a little bit from the mid sevens to the high sixes, um, there's still so many people that are sitting on 2 and 3% mortgages, and they're just not supplying enough inventory to the marketplace. And still, with rates in the high sixes, some people are saying that that's still too high of a mortgage payment for me. I think I'll stay in the rental market or go to the rental market. So we're going to bring to you today how to buy a 2 to 4 unit building for only 3.5% down. We think that it's not commonly known. I think when people think of 2, 3, or 4 units, they think, oh my goodness, I got to come up with 20% down, 25% down. And my client doesn't have it, or the client knows that they don't have it. And so they just shy away from these types of opportunities. So we're going to talk to you today about how to buy these 2, 3, and 4 unit buildings with only 3.5% down. And we want people to focus. We want you as realtors to focus on the net mortgage payment and to educate your clients. More importantly, if you're looking to increase, the activity, the volume of your closings, take this seminar and think of it as your seminar that you would present to people. You would be the host. We do it on Zoom. I would be your guest speaker. And if you have, 3, 6, 10 prospects, people that you might know that might be interested in buying, but they're holding off, this is the time to give their emails to Tony. We'll send out the invites in your name, bring them to something like this. And education is key. If they start to understand that, oh my goodness, I don't have to be a renter. I could actually be a home owner. I could own a 2, 3, or 4 unit, and it could be the start of my wealth building proposition. So without further ado, I'm Glenn Marino. I'm the business development manager with Guild Mortgage, and we're happy to present this to you today. A little bit about Tony Marino, who's sponsoring this. He is the branch manager for the Marino team in Naperville for Guild Mortgage Company. He's a loan originator licensed in Illinois, Colorado, and Florida. So for you Illinois realtors, if you have any of your clients that are moving to Colorado or to Florida, by all means contact Tony because he's licensed there. He can get them pre-approved and help them with their financing. He specializes in getting people into home ownership using down payment assistance. We're going to see how down payment assistance can help with these 2, 3, and 4 unit opportunities for people. He uses education to help people understand how they can become homeowners and own a part of the American dream. It's sitting down with them, going through these types of slides and helping them understand that homeownership is just around the corner. They don't have to remain renters. Let's get into some of the key facts. Homeownership is still the American dream. However, buying a home has been hardest hit with the recent rise in interest rates. We've all seen it. We've all felt it. There's so many people sitting on the sidelines that say, I can't afford it. I don't like the monthly payment, or I just don't qualify. My income's not high enough to afford a mortgage payment in the high sixes. Higher interest rates have led to higher mortgage payments. We just talked about that. The higher mortgage payments are making people either feel uncomfortable with their monthly budget. I mean, they've got enough things going on in their life right now. We have high inflation that we've experienced. We've got high utility bills, the cost of eggs, the cost of meats, the cost of gasoline. That's all factoring into then with a higher mortgage payment. People are saying, no. I have to hold off. I need to feed the family first and foremost. I'll go into the rental market and hold off on buying in the home market. The changing interest rate environment, it's seen a dampening in affordability. They either don't want the payment or can't afford it because their income isn't large enough to handle a mortgage payment in the high sixes, and in demand to buy a single family home. Let's ask ourselves some questions. How many of you had clients that want to purchase a home, but the monthly mortgage payment is much bigger than they expected? I think all of you probably have seen clients like that. How many of you had clients that did not qualify for a home mortgage because of rising interest rates? When rates were at 3, 4%, there was a lot more people that were in the pool of buyers. That pool of buyers has shrunk when rates went up to the mid sevens and now into the higher sixes. How many of you then showed your clients a 2 to 4 unit building that may have a lower monthly mortgage payment than a single family home? It may even be lower than what they'd be paying in monthly rent. I think the answer to that question is probably many of you did not show a client a 2 to 4 unit building. You did not comb your neighborhood or surrounding neighborhoods and look at 2 to 4 units that might be available for purchase. I've recommended this strategy to my daughter and to many of her friends. You know, they're college graduates, they're coming out, they're getting good jobs, they have decent incomes. But even with their decent incomes, it's very hard for them, especially when home prices continue to escalate at the same time that mortgage interest rates have been escalating. So I've shown this to my daughter, to her friends, and many of them have adopted or looked at going into the 2 to 4 unit arena as a means by which to get into the real estate market, let that asset appreciate, let tenants then pay toward their mortgage payment, reduce the net mortgage payment. It's been a great strategy to get clients into real estate and to begin to build equity. If they just go into the rental market and you put them into the rental market because the mortgage payment on a single family is too high, they're not building any equity. They're not building wealth. They're paying to a landlord. What you should be doing is trying to help them become landlords and get them into 2 to 4 units as their starter then. If they can't afford the single family, 2 to 4 is a great place for them to start. They just have to live in one of the units. You need to remind your clients that people who own real estate, people that own real estate have a net worth 45 times greater than someone who's a renter. So again, get them excited about the fact that, building wealth through real estate is a real phenomena. And here's a great way for them to start with a 2 to 4 unit if a single family is not something that they can afford today. Well, what is a 2 to 4 unit property? Well, it's a multifamily 2 to 4 unit property is a type of real estate that contains 2 to 4 separate living units within one building. The units are separated by walls and have separate entrances, kitchens, and bathrooms, but may share common spaces like their yards or their driveways. The properties are often referred to as duplexes, triplexes, or fourplexes. In Chicago, we call them 2, 3, or 4 flats. No matter what you call them, one person owns the property, hopefully your client, and each unit's rent helps the owner pay the mortgage, the taxes, the insurance, and other expenses. Kind of a great idea. Multifamily 2 to 4 unit homes are affordable and surprisingly easy to buy. You don't need perfect credit or a substantial down payment, especially as we'll see later on in the future slides. 3.5% is really a nice low down payment. Your future tenants help to pay your mortgage, and the lender may factor this in as income when you apply for the loan. What that means is they factored in as income. If you live in a 3 unit, the lender will give 75% of the other 2 units, the tenants that are your renters, they will give you 75% of the other 2 tenants' rental income as income for you to afford the mortgage payment. Kind of a great idea. So let's say you're a W-2 employee. Obviously, the lender will take into consideration what you're making in W-2 wages, but they'll also take into consideration 75% of the rental income from your 2 to 4 unit property. In Chicago, where 2 to 4 unit properties make up 26% of the rental market, 26% of the rental market, home buyers have a unique opportunity to collect passive income, rental income, build wealth because the property is going to appreciate as the mortgage balance declines, and benefit from tax breaks that aren't available when you buy a single family home. Some key points about 2 to 4 unit buildings in Chicago. Large share of the rental stock. These buildings constitute a substantial part of Chicago's housing stock, making up about 26% of all residential rental units. Affordable housing component. A significant portion of affordable rental units in Chicago are found in 2 to 4 unit buildings, which means that you're going to have an abundance of rental people looking to rent from you. It's going to be up to you to make sure that you vet them properly, make sure that they're creditworthy, but you'll have people looking at your building. Owner occupancy prevalence. Many 2 to 4 unit buildings are owner occupied. Owner occupied because you can get into them instead of with 25% down, with only 3.5% down, with owners renting out one or more units. Disparity across neighborhoods. Some Chicago neighborhoods have a much higher concentration of 2 to 4 unit buildings compared to others. So how much is the down payment for a 2 to 4 unit? The down payment for a multifamily 2 to 4 unit property can vary depending upon several factors, such as the purchase price, the type of loan. Type of loan could be a conventional loan versus an FHA loan, or whether or not you plan to live in there. Is it going to be owner occupied or is it going to be non-owner occupied? Purchase price. Lenders calculate the minimum down payment as a percent of the purchase price. The more you pay for the place, the more you need for a down payment. So for example, if the minimum down payment is 20%, you need half as much to buy a $250,000 property as compared to one selling for $500,000. Loan type. The down payment requirement for a 2 to 4 unit property varies depending upon whether or not you use a conventional loan or an FHA loan to buy it. A conventional loan requires a minimum of 15% down for a 2 unit property. And that's if it's going to be owner occupied, and 20% for a 3 to 4 unit property. So for example, if you buy a 3 flat for $500,000, you're using a conventional loan. You need 20% of 500,000 is $100,000. That's a big nut. That's a big down payment. On the other hand, if you use an FHA loan, you only need 3.5% of the purchase price for the down payment. So for that same $500,000 3 flat, the down payment's only $17,500 versus $100,000. Which do you think your client is going to be more inclined to have their eyes wide open and paying attention to what you have to say? So again, here's the down payment percent against purchase price. Conventional loan versus FHA loan. On 2 units, it's 15% versus 3.5%. On 3 units, it's 20% versus 3.5%. And on 4 units, it's 20% down versus 3.5%. You can see FHA is consistent throughout. 3.5%, no matter if it's 2, 3, or 4 units. Great financing. How much is the down payment for a 2 to 4 unit if it's investment property? Okay, this is where somebody says, I'm not going to live in it. I'm going to rent out all the units. So for conventional loan, you need at least 25% for the down payment when you're buying a 2 to 4 unit for investment purposes. You can't use an FHA loan, that 3.5% down, to buy an investment property. FHA requires that you live there for at least 1 year after buying it, which again goes back to why I love giving, people, whether they're, the young people, any type of client who's looking to purchase a home, if they can't afford the single home, the single family home, looking at this 2 to 4 unit, if they can live in one of the units, rent out one of the others, reduce the mortgage payment with the rental income that they're receiving, this is a great opportunity for them to start building wealth in America. Why buy a 2 to 4 unit property? Well, there's no other potential investment for first-time homebuyers like a 2 to 4 unit property. It's an affordable investment that can generate income, build wealth, and earn you tax breaks. You don't need much money up front to buy a multifamily home. If you're going to live in one of the units, you need only 3.5% of the purchase price. This means you could qualify for a mortgage to buy a multifamily home with the same cash you saved for the down payment on a single family home or a condo. Let's take a look at the minimum down payment. If I was with the 3.5% down with the FHA, if the purchase price is $500,000, 3.5% is $17,500. I'd be looking then to qualify for a $482,500 loan. Why buy a 2 to 4 unit property? Well, to take advantage of the potentially low down payment, you'll need to live in your multifamily home in one of the units, establishing one of the units as your principal residence. Within 60 days of purchasing your multifamily, you must move in and continuously reside there for at least 1 year. After a year, you can move out and potentially consider buying another multifamily home or your first single family home. As the owner, you'll choose the unit. Is it the first floor? Is it the second floor? Is it the third floor? Is it the fourth floor that you'd like to live in? Then rent out the other units to tenants. Collecting rents from tenants for the second, third, and fourth units will generate income, helping you pay back your home loan. If you buy a 3 unit, live in one of the units, and rent out the other two for about $1,600 a month, you would generate $3,200 in gross rental income per month. More people are renting these days, and this higher demand for rents means higher rental rates. The higher rents will give a buyer the opportunity to generate a steady stream of income or lower their monthly mortgage payment. Whether you live in your multifamily home or rent it out entirely, a steady stream of rental income combined with property appreciation and tax breaks can help you build significant wealth. Remember, your clients are not building wealth if they're renters. They can be building wealth as their loan amortizes down and as their rents increase. Of course, one multifamily home won't make your client a tycoon, but still, landlords are about 4 times as wealthy as the average American that decides to rent. Your wealth, separate from your income, is your money in the bank, along with your investments, your properties, your assets, minus the liabilities like mortgages. A multifamily home all but promises appreciation as it is very likely to increase in value over time. Think of it. If rents continue to go up year after year after year, that property only becomes more and more valuable in the resale market. As your property increases in value, you'll continue to use your rental income to pay down the mortgage loan. This is how your wealth grows over time. Having tenants help you pay down the mortgage while at the same time there's appreciation in the value of your investment. Your $500,000 three flat appreciates at a rate of, let's assume, 5% annually. And your wealth then grows from 500,000 to 525,000 in just 1 year. Also, because you paid $17,500 for the down payment, you'll have earned a 43% positive return based on the property's $25,000 appreciation. On top of the potential to earn income and build wealth, rental properties also come with significant tax breaks. Because renting comes with lots of associated costs, you can deduct some of the related expenses from the rental income you report on your tax return. So, for example, you can deduct interest, you can deduct insurance, you get a deduction for depreciation, you can deduct property taxes, you can deduct repairs, utilities, and many more building-related expenses. So, how can future rental income help me buy a 2 to 4 unit property? Because you'll collect rent from one or more units in your multifamily home, you can use this future rental income to increase your purchasing power. Using this additional income from tenants, you'll be able to afford a higher monthly housing payment. This increases in what you can afford means that you can borrow more for your mortgage, allowing you to purchase a more valuable property. So if a $400,000 single family home, the mortgage payment was too high, too expensive, or you just didn't qualify based on your income, you can then look at a $400,000 or $500,000 2 to 4 unit because now you've got another source of income beyond just your W-2 wages. You've got 75% of the rental income that's going to help you qualify for that mortgage. Future rental income refers to the money you expect to receive from a home you rent out rather than live in. We use the term in the mortgage biz to represent the estimated income a rented property will bring in. When we qualify you for a home loan, we will use this number as part of our calculations. So again, in the case of where there might even be a vacancy in a property that you're thinking about buying, when the appraiser goes out and appraises the property, they also give to the lender what they estimate is the fair market value of the rent that unit's going to bring in. and the underwriter gives you 75% of that estimated future rental income. So they do qualify you on what the market rents should be, unless you already have somebody on a long-term lease, then they're going to go by whatever that lease is and give you 75% of that lease. You can use rent from multifamily home to help you qualify for the mortgage, adjusting for maintenance costs and possible vacancies. Maintenance costs and possible vacancies, that's the other 25%. That's why the lender will only add 75% of the rent that you're collecting. They'll add the 75% to your income because they're allowing for 25% for periods of vacancy or repairs and maintenance costs that you're going to have to put into that property. So let's say Rose earns $7,500 per month. That's her W-2. She considers buying a 3-unit, she plans to live in 1 unit and collect rent from the other 2. Based on similar units in her area, each of those units will rent for $1,600 or $3,200 per month. When we qualify Rose for her loan, we're going to use 75% of the monthly rental income, subtracting 25% for vacancy losses, maintenance costs, and management expenses. So $3,200 in rents times 75%, what we're going to give her credit for. We're going to add $2,400 to Rose's W-2 wages. So then we add the $2,400 in adjusted rental income to the $7,500 that Rose makes from her job. That gives her a total of now $9,900. That's the income we're going to use to qualify Rose for her mortgage. Kind of a great idea. So generally, your monthly housing payment should be about 31% of the monthly income. With $9,900 coming in each month, this means Rose can afford a monthly housing payment of $3,070. That's the $9,900 of gross income times 31% is $3,070. For comparison, if Rose were to purchase a condo, the most she could afford to spend each month would be $2,325. Without the rental income, the amount Rose can borrow decreases considerably. Because Rose is interested in a multifamily home, the future rental income increases her purchasing power, allowing her to borrow more with and for her mortgage. So how does this strategy work? Well, you purchase a 2 to 4 unit building in a neighborhood that you're willing to live in. Next, the rent from the other tenants will be used to lower the net mortgage payment. The net mortgage loan payment is typically less than the mortgage payment on a single family residence. If the client buys a 2-unit, they can receive from IDA, the Illinois Housing Development Authority, up to $10,000 in down payment assistance with no interest on that $10,000 and no or principal only monthly payments. Let's stop here for a second. So we're saying here, not only are 2 units a valuable first purchase place for many first-time home buyers or even existing home buyers, but now if they restrict it to a 2-unit, because again, IDA will not look at 3 and 4 units for down payment assistance, but if they look at a 2-unit, IDA can give them either $6,000, $7,500, all the way up to $10,000 in down payment assistance. That's quite also an additional benefit that you as realtors need to let people know. If you can't afford the single family, how about the 2-unit? And how about if I get you $10,000 in down payment assistance? And many of you should know from previous classes that in order to get the $10,000, they have to get 2 green lights. One, they have to have a 640 or better credit score. That's kind of easy. And they must make less than $134,000 a year. Well, I know lots of people who make less than $134,000 a year. So if I got 2 green lights, all of a sudden my client can get up to $10,000 from the state of Illinois. And there's no interest on it. And the principal only payment on the $10,000 is $83.33 a month. It's not a big payment. Again, how does the strategy work? Well, you live in the 2 to 4 unit for 1 year. Then you put a tenant in your unit after 1 year. Now you've got your first investment property. It continues to appreciate. Rents continue to go up. Your mortgage balance continues to go down. You're building equity. This is something that, called, wealth accumulation, wealth building. Now your client has an investment property with the mortgage payment being paid by the monthly rents. Now the client can buy another 2 to 4 unit building or their first single family residence and begin to increase their real estate portfolio. Again, remind your clients that people who own real estate have a net worth. They build equity, they build wealth 45 times greater than someone who's a renter. So let's look at this buying a 2 unit with IDA. I think it's one of the greatest strategies out there, and you guys should be screaming it. You guys should be advertising it. You should be putting on seminars just like this, inviting 6 people, 10 people, and educating them. And I can be your guest speaker if you like. And what we'll do is we'll start getting people interested in getting pre-approved for something like this. So what's the purchase limit if they use IDA? IDA says, there is an overall limit. There's 2 columns here. One's the single family, one is the 2 units. Let's focus on the 2 units because that's what we're talking about today. So in Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will, 754,000. I venture to say that most of your clients are not looking to buy a 2 unit greater than 754,000. So in my opinion, everyone who's looking at a 2 unit property using IDA is the property will qualify because it's under 754,000. What's the income limitation if you use IDA on a 2 unit? Well, again, in Cook, DuPage, Kane, Lake, McHenry, and Will, it's 134,520. That's huge. You all know people that make less than 134,520. You all know people that are going to buy something for less than 754,000. So why aren't you talking to them and saying, can I please educate you? Can I please show you the difference between what you might pay in a single family in a monthly mortgage payment? Why aren't you teaming up with Tony and letting him show and give you Excel spreadsheets? They're going to be able to show your clients the difference between single family and a 2 to 4 unit, and you getting $10,000 in down payment assistance. So let's look at an example of buying a 2 unit. So what if the monthly principal, interest, tax, and insurance mortgage payment, or not what is the monthly mortgage payment? If our client is looking at buying a $449,000 2 unit building in Batavia, Illinois, putting 3.5% down. But what would the mortgage payment be if the client were to first look at a single family residence in the same price range? So let's look at the single family first. So looking at the single family first, the monthly mortgage payment, if our client is looking to buy a $449,000 home in Batavia, putting 3.5% down because they can use FHA for a single family. And the sales price is $449,000. The loan amount's $440,867 with a down payment. Remember, 3.5% is $15,715. Something that can be achievable for most of our buyers. Combination of what they have in the bank, combination of getting gifts from blood relatives, mom, dad, grandma, grandpa, brothers, sisters. The principal and interest payment on a typical FHA loan now would be about $28.96 plus taxes, insurance, and then the mortgage insurance premium. So they would have a payment of $3,872. Well, maybe it's a little high for the client's monthly housing budget. They go, well, renting isn't that high, and that's going to stretch me. I'm in this crazy environment with high inflation and high eggs and high meat and high gas prices. I'm not willing to spend that amount on a monthly housing payment. So now let's look at the client buying a 2 unit home with a renter, a tenant in one of the units. So the monthly mortgage payment, if your client's looking to buy not a single family, but the same 449 2 flat in Batavia, putting 3.5% down, same loan amount, $448.67, same down payment, $15,715. The principal and interest, same principal and interest, taxes, insurance, same $3,872, but the average rent in Batavia is about $2,025. That means the net mortgage payment is $1,847. Huh. which this 1847 is less than the cost of renting a two-bedroom. The average two bedrooms is 2,000, and you just showed them that they could buy and own and be a landlord and be a wealth builder for 1847 a month. They're going, they're starting to hug you. They're starting to say, "Oh my God, you're opening up my eyes." They're saying, "Oh my goodness, you now have an interested buyer, someone who thought they were going to stay in the rental market. You've just taken them out of the rental market and you've started to make them a buyer, somebody that can, that you can do some good with." So, what would your client do? What would you do if you were the client? So, if the client cannot afford, is uncomfortable buying a single family residence and having a monthly housing payment of 3,872, their option is to rent for 2,025, right? However, you, the realtor, the educator, working with Tony, working with me, you're going to educate them on buying a 2-unit, receiving monthly rent from the tenant that brings their net mortgage payment down to 1847. Give them a copy of this PowerPoint. Put them and others onto a Zoom webinar, monthly, quarterly, however often you want to do it, and start getting people educated and interested in becoming homeowners, which is less than the cost of renting a two-bedroom home in Batavia. The 1847 is less than the 2025. Which do you think your client will want? My client probably would want the 1847. My client would want to become a wealth builder and owner of real estate. Do you think your client would be hugging you by now? I think so. Well, let's sweeten the deal. That looked good, but we got something better coming. So let's sweeten the 2 to 4 unit purchase. Let's add IDA. Well, the purchase price has to be less than 754,000. Remember that was the IDA limit? I don't think anybody on this call is going to say, "Oh, the 2 to 4 unit, the two unit is going to be more than 754." I've not seen any of them over 754. And assuming the client's income is less than 134,000, again, the IDA limit. Most of our clients make less than 134,000. So the client can qualify for up to 10,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance. All they need now is just better than a 640 or better credit score. And if they don't, they work with Tony on getting credit repair. This $10,000 is a zero interest loan with monthly payments of $83.33 of principal only for 120 payments. It's a great deal. Whenever I talk to clients, I say, if you took your significant other out for dinner this weekend, what would it cost you? And they say, "Well, Glenn, it depends on the restaurant. It could be 60, it could be 80, it could be $100. I go, "Can you skip one of those dinners a month? And then you'll have that $83.33 a month available to make, and I'll give you $10,000 toward down payment and closing costs." You know what? Their eyes open up and they go, "Really? I can do that?" Absolutely. So instead of coming up with 15,715 in down payment, the client is coming up with only 5,715 minus $10,000. Do you think your client's going to kind of start hugging you again? You think your client's going to start saying, "This is fantastic. Where have you been all my life? Why haven't you been telling me this?" The interest rate on an IDA FHA is 6.5% today, not 6.875 like a standard one would be. So let's take a look at what the mortgage loan payment and the net mortgage loan payment would be with this lower rate. So let's look at a client buying a 2-unit with IDA. So the monthly mortgage payment, if the client is looking to buy a 449,000 2-flat Batavia, putting 3.5% down, same purchase price, same loan amount, it's 15,007 less 10,000. It's $5,715. The principal and interest not at 6.875, but at 6.5 is 2787. Same taxes, same homeowners insurance, same mortgage insurance premium. The total mortgage payment is 3,763 gross, less the tenant in the second unit, 2,025. The net mortgage payment is 1,738. That looks really good. which is still less than the cost of renting a two-bedroom in Batavia. Since the monthly payment is affordable, 1738, and the down payment has been reduced to 5,715, which most people have in the bank if they're renters, because they are always ready for they always have their first month's rent and a security deposit in the bank. That could be $6,000, $7,000. So it reduces the amount of cash that's needed at closing. So let's look at the cash needed at closing on a 2-unit using IDA. Same example, 449,000, 3.5% down. The assistance is $10,000. The average closing costs are about $5,500. IDA is going to charge a 1% origination fee. And then we have now the buyer's agent fee that has to be dealt with. And again, many of you have had classes and you kind of know what the strategy is, but you'll hear about it here again. So if they stay renters at 2025, they're going to have to come out of pocket for $4,050. Okay. Now, if they purchase, they have to go through 3 buckets. The first bucket is down payment. The second bucket is closing costs. And the third bucket is prepaids or escrows. So the first bucket is 3.5% down. 3.5% of 449 is $15,715. But remember, down payment assistance, the yellow is what our client has to come out of pocket for. So the down payment is $10,000. They're going to come out of pocket for $5,715. Those two combined give us all the money we need for bucket number 1. Put a check mark. We've got all the money. They're out of pocket for $5,715. Bucket number 2, they're going to have to come up with the average closing costs, the IDA origination fee, the buyer's agent fee. That's $21,080. Well, let's deal first with the $11,225. Many of you are having the seller pay the buyer's agent fee. They're used to it. That's what in the days of old, meaning just a couple of months ago, the sellers were paying 5%, 6%, and half of that was for the buyer's fee. So right now, most sellers are agreeing to pay the buyer's agent fee. We're going to assume that because that's what's happening in the real world. So we've got $11,225 that's being paid by the seller. Great. In the meantime, we got to come up with another $9,855. There is no remaining down payment assistance because, again, we used all 10,000 of it here in bucket number 1. But of this 9,855, you could still negotiate. You as the realtor could still negotiate for some of that or all of that to be paid by the seller. Again, how you might do that is you might increase the purchase price. You might say, after buyer and seller have set the table of expectation at $449,000, after your client has made the offer, again, you got to remember this: your client makes the offer, and they might have verbally said, "We're going to come in with $449,000," and then half hour later, if you've done some homework, if you, the realtor, have seen that, well, this property is undervalued a little bit, it could easily appraise out at $459,000. You can offer to increase the purchase price to $459,000, provided the seller pays $10,000 in the buyer's closing costs. So this is a worst case scenario that they're coming up with $9,855 out of pocket. It also, all or a portion of it, could be paid by the seller by you grossing up the purchase price. And under escrows bucket number 3, you have to remember that this is, for escrowing for real estate taxes and homeowners insurance. But in the state of Illinois, we pay our taxes in arrears, which means that if we're closing on September 30th, who lived in the house from January 1st to September 30th of 2024? Well, it was the seller. So that means that the seller has to provide 9 months of real estate tax credit to the buyer. The credit always exceeds what the lender wants to set up in the escrow. So out of pocket, it's 0 in this bucket number 3. Bucket number 2, worst case is $9,800. Bucket number one is 5,700 for a total of 15,570. Again, I might have that in the bank as an interested potential buyer. I might have a portion of that in the bank because I have my first month's rent and security deposit. And I have a good relationship with mom and dad, brother, sister, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa. And I'm able to get gifts toward that down payment. So that makes home ownership for the 2 to 4 unit with IDA very much so within reach for many people. So for every dollar the realtor negotiates for the seller to pay for closing costs, it reduces the cash needed at closing. Instead of that being $9,800, if you got them to even pay $5,000, if you got buyer and seller to agree $449,000 is the price, but before you ink it and before you have your client sign the offer, you go back to the seller's realtor and say, my client was agreeable at $449, but wants to pay more, wants to pay $454,000, wants to increase it by $5,000, provided that your client pays $5,000 in closing costs. All of a sudden, to the seller, it nets them the same dollar amount that they had agreed to before. So, but to your client, it means a lot because for every dollar that you negotiate that the seller pays for closing costs, it reduces dollar for dollar how much your client has to bring to closing. So either the seller outright agrees to pay for all or some of the closing costs, which helps to bring down the cash needed at closing for your client. In the event the seller initially does not want to pay for any closing costs, the realtor can suggest that the client agree to pay $10,000 more for the property, provided the seller agrees to pay $10,000 in closing costs, just what we talked about. Using this strategy requires that the realtor check comparables in the area and that the subject property can appraise at the increased purchase price. So let's summarize. A buyer who may not qualify for a single-family home mortgage or who is uncomfortable with the monthly mortgage payment because it's higher than rents and it's because of high interest rates, they may find a 2 to 4 unit purchase a great way to enter the real estate market. Remember, after 1 year, the buyer can vacate the property they're living in, rent it out, and now they have a nice investment property to maintain, allowing the buyer to purchase another 2 to 4 unit property or even their own single family residence. You've got built-in additional transactions here because you would be marking your calendar for 1 year down the road after the closing to talk to that client and say, is it time? Are you thinking about moving out? Would you like to put another tenant in there? Maybe you can help them get the tenant. Maybe you can help them find that single family residence or that next 2 to 4 unit. Remember, IDA provides up to $10,000 in zero interest loan with principal payments only for 120 months. A 2 to 4 unit purchase can make the net mortgage payment less than the cost of renting. So what are your clients waiting for? What are you waiting for? Take action. Now that you've reviewed how easy it is to buy a 2 to 4 unit property, what's your next step? Educate your clients, their children, their family, their friends. Ask them if they've got anybody who's interested in getting into the real estate market, but they think it's too high with interest rates or the payments too high. Ask them if they'd like to attend a 30-minute seminar that you host. You welcome people. You introduce your guest speaker, Glenn Marino or Tony Marino. You find a 2 to 4 unit nearby, have Tony run the numbers so you can show them to your prospects. Give them a call with Tony. Show them the PowerPoint presentation and the numbers. Provide them a monthly homebuyer seminar with Tony being your guest speaker or myself, all via Zoom. They don't even have to leave their home. Your goal, your homework today, what you should do next before your client buys a home, get them pre-approved for free with Tony with a 2 unit. Obtain a free credit report. They'll assemble the necessary documentation. They'll get an automated underwriting approval. They'll get a pre-approval letter. Now that they have a yes to their loan request, they can go shopping for a home or for a 2 to 4 unit. Or if there's some challenge in that plan, Tony can review an action plan with them that tells them pay down this collection, pay off this, you know, they'll pay off this, whatever is the challenge in there. Tony can tell them if they take this action, it's going to be worth 20 points in your credit score. Start hosting a home buyer seminar. That's your homework. Using Tony's Zoom. You don't have to have Zoom software. You don't have to do the invite. All you have to do is give Tony the email addresses of your prospects. If you want to do them slow but sure, you want to do 6 at a time, you want to do 10 at a time, but do them. Don't just wait for the business to come to you. Bring the business to them. Educate them. And once they find out how great your education is, ask them if they've got friends, like I asked my daughter's friends, ask their family members, brothers and sisters, ask existing clients who you put into single family. I mean, I'm in a single family, but I've got daughters that have been graduating from college and they want to become homeowners. Ask your existing homeowner clients if they've got sons or daughters that would like to learn how to get into the real estate market, even though interest rates are higher. So Tony and the Marino team want to thank you. They get pre-approvals done within 24 hours. They're committed to financing the dream homes and answering any and all questions. Market jointly with Tony with the home buyer seminars on Zoom, just like this one. Use Tony's Zoom software. Tony sends out the invites. You supply the names and the emails. Make sure you contact Tony at 847-804-1059, or it's tony.marino@guildmortgage.net. So who wants to provide additional Zoom seminars on a quarterly or monthly basis? And I'll answer any questions you may have. Comments, questions, suggestions.
Hi, Glenn. Reynaldo here in Chicago from HomeSmart Connect in Arlington Heights. How are you?
Ronaldo, I'm always doing well when I hear your voice. Good
Yeah,
to hear you.
this is a great presentation, and yeah, we gotta go out there and find the business and not just wait for anybody to contact us. Since election time is around the corner, the interest rate was high, is coming down, so a lot of people they don't know about these particular programs, and it's up to us to start calling our database and our circle of influence in the neighborhood, see who wants to buy or interested in and investing in some of these fantastic programs that you guys are offering right now. Now, Tony, I mean, Glenn, I have a question now that you
Sure.
mentioned. If, let's say, I invest in a 4 unit, I live in one.
Yep.
After 1 year, I have also the opportunity to qualify for another 4 unit. Now, that second 4 unit, do I qualify for another 3.5% interest on the second 4 unit?
You can, Ronaldo, under these circumstances. You mentioned you stayed in the first 4 unit for at least 1 year. So that's that you're check mark. That's good. The second thing is the underwriter is going to be looking at um, are you are you improving your housing? And what I'm saying there is, let's say the current 4 unit, you're living in 1,400, 1,500 square feet. If you're moving into another 4 unit where, let's say, you've got 2,000 square feet, that you've got an extra bedroom, you're going from a 1 bedroom to a 2 bedroom. Those are all positive. The underwriter will say, well, you're meeting the smell test, that this new place is something that someone you should desire to be your owner occupied place. But conversely, if you were to go from, say, 2,000 square feet and it's a 2 bedroom, and now all of a sudden you're going to a 1 bedroom and you have a child, and they look at it and go, wait a minute, you've got a child, you were in a 2 bedroom, you were sleeping in 1 bedroom, your child was in the other one, and now all of a sudden you're going to buy you're trying to convince me that this 4 unit property where you're going to live it. They're all 1 bedroom units.
Mm.
That this is going to be your owner occupied. Where's your child going to sleep? On the couch?
Mm.
It won't pass the smell test. They're going to say, no, no, no. They'll come back and you can apply for owner occupied. They will counter you back and say, no, it's investment property. You're going to need to put 25% down. So as long as it passes the smell test, as long as it's an improvement in your housing stock or your housing living, that it's understandable. You were in a 2 bedroom, you're going to a 2 bedroom, or you were in a 1 bedroom. Now you've got a child. That's another great reason to move out because you just had a new baby. You need to have their own nursery, their own bedroom. That's all good stuff. And they would say, yes, this next 4 unit property, you can get it for 3.5% down. But you got to pass the smell test.
Right, right. Thank you. Yeah, and I see that the VA it won't qualify here because there is 0%. You need at least 3.5% for these particular homes and programs. So that's fine.
Correct. Correct. So again, um, like I said, I liked what you said in the beginning. You guys can sit back and wait for clients to come to you, but I guarantee you, if you guys look at your database, I mean, you guys have been in the business for years, or if you just got started, you got a wedding list. If you had to prepare a list of people that you would invite to your daughter's wedding, you would say, "Oh my God, I got 200 people. I got 250 people here." You need to ask them if it's not them, do they have a child? Do they have a son, a daughter? Do they have a brother or sister? Because you've got, and you can't just verbally tell them that the 2 to 4 unit uh, arena is a good place for them to start their real estate venture of wealth building. You need a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? You guys have seen pictures here, the PowerPoint. You need to share the PowerPoint, bring them to a seminar. It can be your seminar. It doesn't have to be Guild Mortgage seminar. You know, we'll put you up on page one as being the host. It's Ronaldo Ruiz, from Home Smart Connect, and that Glenn is the guest speaker. This way, it's a win-win. You're getting all sorts of notoriety. You're getting education out there to people. You're showing them the way to become homeowners, and it's going to be hard for them to say, "Oh no, I really don't want to go through the free process of getting pre-approved for a 2 unit. I'd much rather stay a renter." Many of them should say, "Let me step up. Let me see what my credit score is. Is it 640 or better? Maybe I should be looking at that $10,000 and doing it with a 2 unit." And after 1 year, 1 year goes by fast. After 1 year, I can put a tenant in there, and then I can go out and buy my own single family. Because by 1 year from now, don't we all expect interest rates to be much lower? Of course we do. And so with that, the single family might make sense, or again, like you're talking about, or they go back into the 2 to 4 unit arena and buy another 2 to 4 unit as long as it passes the smell test.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, the other thing, how do we advertise in some social media site? Can we take some of this stuff or create something in reference to the 2 to 4 units, advertising, of course, your company and sort of something that could be advertised so we could get the calls?
Well, what you could do is, I'm going to send out this PowerPoint to everybody that was on the call, who everybody who registered for the class. If I were you, I might take a picture of, one of the slides that you think is a good teaser, a good, something that people would want to know more. And then you can put a link in there to the PowerPoint, and they can see the full amount. Again, I don't know that I would give them the PowerPoint. I'm going to back up and say I wouldn't give them the link to the PowerPoint. You want to present that to them, but what you can do is put enough in text, in pictures, about if you've been waiting to build wealth, if you've been waiting to become a homeowner, if the mortgage payment seems too high with these rates, you know, would you be interested in knowing more about how to build wealth, how to become a real estate owner in the 2 to 4 unit marketplace where the monthly mortgage payment could be less than what you're paying in rent? Click here to register for this class. And, yeah, and then they click, and now it's just a registration page. And, from there, you know, you can, with Tony, you guys can set up registration pages for your Zoom meeting. It would, would be Ronaldo Ruiz presents, how to become a real estate owner in the 2 to 4 unit market, or how to buy a 2 to 4 unit instead of a single family. Um, and when they click on the link that's in Facebook or Instagram or wherever you might be doing social media, it goes to the Zoom registration page, and everybody's name is there, everybody's email is there, and you're contacting them before the class, letting them know how interested you are in meeting them, and giving them more great education, and then you call them then after the class and talk to them some more. So yeah, I mean, I would try to entice them with some key points from this PowerPoint, asking if they would like to become homeowners instead of renters and start building wealth versus not building wealth as a renter, and click this link to register for this educational class.
Great, great, great. I'm gonna see how can I build this landing page so to get people over to us, you and I, or Tony in Naperville. So great.
Just, yeah, just let Tony know that you want you just pick a date. You have to pick a date for the registration page. Pick a date. Usually at least 2 weeks from now, but at least give them a couple of weeks, and that gives you a couple of weeks to then be. Don't just go into social media once. I mean, you go into social media like every other day. Letting people know, and you can use different slides or different you images about becoming a homeowner in the 2 to 4 unit market versus single family, and you know that keep always giving them the same Zoom registration page. But tell Tony you want a registration page, but all he needs is a date and a time. Are you going to do it during the week? I'm just picking a date here, on a Thursday night at 6 p.m. Great, that's what he needs to know to create the registration page, and then he'll give you the link to that registration page so that you can put it into all of your social media along with the image, along with the text message, trying to entice people to sign up for the seminar. Does that make sense?
It sure does. Very, very, very good. So I'm looking forward to it. So let me see how can I start and then follow up with Tony. Thank you. Thank you very much, Glenn.
Because Tony will get me involved then. Because if you talk to Tony, what he'll do is he'll pass it on to me, and I'll create it for you guys, and then he'll send it on to you with the link, and you know you can even, if you want, you can even send it to me to look at and review before you put it into social media, what it is that you're saying, and I can either say it looks great or change a few words, and get it going, and then
Approve or decline.
right. So great. I'm glad to see that you'll do that, because I think it's a winner for you guys if you will just reach out and become educators of this very important way to become homeowners. Because all they're really looking, with so many things challenging people today with high inflation and gas prices, people are just looking at, how much are you taking out of my pocket monthly? And if you can show them something that's equal to their rent, close to their rent, less than their rent, and they become real estate owners, yeah, who wouldn't want that? I mean, it's logical. They're going to say, "Let's move forward. It looks great." But you cannot just verbalize it. You have to show them. You have to do, those that Excel spreadsheet that I showed you in this class. You know, Tony has it, I have it. You can do real examples. Once you know that, oh, um, I have a client, that went to the Ronaldo class, and he's very interested, but he's looking in, and he's looking in Chicago, and north side, west side, wherever he's looking, and you then can say, well, let me run some numbers for you. I'm going to look at some 2 to 4 units in the west side of Chicago, and from there you put them into the Excel spreadsheet, and you can show them how much, what's their monthly payment going to be. You can do some of your homework on what the rents might be. Maybe the listing already shows what the rents are in the units, and so you can kind of then do the net mortgage payment let Tony help you. You'll do the Excel spreadsheet, share that with the client. And now the client's very excited because it's in the location he's looking at. He looks at the mortgage payment gross, he looks at the mortgage payment net, and he goes, it's something it looks like I can do. And then the last thing he'll do is that other Excel spreadsheet, cash needed at closing, and the client can say, yeah, I've either got this in the bank or I have a methodology to get it between my money and gift money. I can get that together.
Very good, Glenn. Yeah.
Any other comments or questions?